As somebody who has been a notable fan of foxes for quite a fair few years, I have loved them as characters that appear in films and TV shows. I'm not entirely sure what it is about these animals that fascinate me so much. They look awesome, they are resourceful, and as daft as it may sound, I feel some sort of spiritual connection with them. And now I'm going to review several films that foxes have been notable stars of, from the old to the new, the good and the bad. Get ready for Keeny Fox's Foxy Film Reviews! Now please just remember, this is my own personal opinion what I think of these films, and you don't have to agree with it. And I'll be interested in hearing what you think of these films as well, so yeah, let's get on with this. We'll start with a film that most if not all of you will be familiar with, Walt Disney's Robin Hood, where the titular hero is a fox, as is his love interest Maid Marian. There also is a whole host of various other species, such as Little John being a bear and Prince John being a lion. It was made during the Disney Dark period, where they weren't quite sure what sort of films they were wanting to make at the time. It is of course the most universally liked film among furries for obvious reasons, but there is much to like about this film's humour. Believe it or not, this is one of the first few Disney films I did not get to see during my childhood. I was 17 years old when I finally did get the chance to experience it. And I think it's certainly on par with most of the other relatively obscure Disney films. Whilst I think making Robin Hood a fox out of all animals that were available was a good choice, I think my only criticism with this film's characters is that while Robin and Marian are obviously foxes, they do not really show any foxy characteristics. I think they act a bit too much like humans personally, and if they did make Robin Hood a different kind of animal, I think he would still act the same as he would if he was a fox. Anyway, owing to its low budget and production values, this film isn't going to beat the likes of the films from the Disney Renaissance, such as The Lion King, in terms of epic scale, but it is a film that knows what it is, and that is as an enjoyable and comical affair that is still as fun to watch today as it was back in the 1970s. I'm going to rate this film an 8 out of a possible 10. Let us now move on to a live-action film release. This is the French-made The Fox and the Child, directed by Luc Jacquet. Yes, the very same person who directed March of the Penguins. The English version is narrated by Kate Winslet, and it tells the story of a young girl who encounters and eventually befriends a wild fox. The film features the girl observing the fox as it encounters all kinds of threats, both from man and nature. Some scenes are set in beautiful settings in lush meadows, deep forests and underground caves, and as such this is definitely one of the film's strong points. There is a mixture of happy and of sad scenes, but let me just say that the ending is a bittersweet one that still left me satisfied after I saw it in the cinema. On the downside, the film is somewhat pedestrian and may not appeal to everybody, but if you like foxes and nature programs, then this film is certainly worth at least one showing. Whether you will want to watch this more than once is entirely up for debate, but although it is no world beater, it still wins out with its simplicity and charm. It made me feel moved, and I guess that is another good enough reason for me to say that I like this film. For that, I am giving The Fox and the Child a respectable 7 out of 10. Our next Foxy film is Fantastic Mr. Fox. The most recent film on my list, this was one that I looked forward to for ages because it is an adaptation of one of my favourite stories by one of my favourite authors, Roald Dahl. Featuring an all-star cast including George Clooney, Bill Murray and Michael Gambon, it stars a dejected Mr. Fox who is currently working as a newspaper columnist who wants to return to his glory days and pulling off heists on the 3 of the meanest farms around, Buggus, Bunce and Bean. With its tongue firmly in cheek and with plenty of amusing scenes, this film was a hit among critics and was a modest success in the box office. Did any of you also notice that the animals have American accents in this film, while the humans have British voices? Just a little bit of pointless trivia for you there. Overall, this film remains faithful to the book, and yet it offers plenty of new ideas that deliver. This film is good fun, and although I was never a massive fan of stop-motion animation, it suits this film as a nice breath of fresh air when you compare it to all those 3D computer-animated films with their 3D gimmicks all over the cinemas these days. Fantastic Mr. Fox has proved that you do not need any of that high-tech polish to make a decent film, and as such it is very worth the 9 out of 10 that I am giving it. Join me in part 2 when we take a look into 4 more Foxy films.